We are building the Wordle project from the WiByte Python curriculum available at www.wibyte.in. Previously, we saw how we could import a large list of words and from there pick out a word that can be the word that is chosen by the computer. It's a 5-letter word. Now we are going to change our focus a little bit. We are going to start thinking about our Tkinter layout because that's equally important. Let's try to understand what is it that we want to do with our layout, and that will dictate what we are, how we're going to code this whole thing. Let's just try to analyze this from first principles. Let's say there's a gameplay that I put over here. I start with music, party, honed. The word chosen is finally first. Now notice here that the labels that are used to represent these letters are in fact very, very neatly arranged. Now we know that these letters these letters get created as the game is going on, depending on what user is guessing. But nonetheless, they are very neatly arranged, almost like our calculator where we had these buttons quite neatly arranged, right? So the reason I bring this up is because we are going to use the same grid, geometry manager for placing these as well. At the bottom of all this, we have an entry box which is spanning the entire, let's say, columns. So you can imagine again that this can be placed with the grid method again with the column span of, let's say, 5, and then finally we have a button. However, there is something quite interesting with this which is different from the calculator as well, which is that these labels are being formed on the fly. So what's going on really is that we have two types of widgets here. We have widgets that always remain in the window, which is the button and the entry box. We have widgets that are created as the game is going on. Basically, these are the labels that form the words that the player is guessing. Now we must ensure that as the game goes on, all of these remain in the right place. Now let's just see this working once. For example, let's say, I'm playing this game. Let's say I say PARTY. Notice when the game starts, I see the entry box and the button over here because those are always there. But when I click the guess, labels are formed. It says party, and those labels appear on top of, let's say, the entry box and the button. Let's try one more word here. So I say, for example, try music. Now this is interesting. The next set of labels is formed below party but above these two, because these two are always there and these two have to stay at the bottom. The new labels sort of keep getting formed in the subsequently lower rows. So if I try, let's say, honed, then I get a third row of labels getting created, but they are above this. So we are going to do this exactly in two parts. In fact, we are first going to look at the labels that are always on the window, and in this case they are the entry box and they are the they are the guess button. Now the way we do this from the grid manager is actually very interesting, and it tells us a good deal about how the grid manager actually works. Remember the basic rule, always define the widget and then place it. So here I'm going to define the entry box, the button, with this command called, with this, let's say, text called guess. We are going to place them on a row number which is very, very large. Now for example, I'm going to put this on row number 99 and row number 100 with the column span of 5. Now 5 because there are 5 columns of labels, as we have seen. This will ensure that these two are present, and now later on when I put a new, let's say, row of labels with a row number lower than this, then it will make sure that the labels appear on top of these two widgets. It's very clear when we start doing it. Let's get to our code. So I come in here, remember this is the code we were developing. So I just go and start, let's say, introducing my entry box and the labels. So I just go and say, look, so I just go and say, for example, entry box is equal to, say, tk dot entry, and just that's the definition. So I'm going to place this entry box dot, say, grid, and let's say row is equal to 99, column is equal to 0, and I'm going to put the column span of, let's say, 5. And that's, like I said, because there are 5 labels that are going to come in the same span as this box. I'm going to do the same exact thing for the button. So let's just use, say, for example, this code over here. But of course, I'll not use the pack method. We'll see this later. So I just call it, let's say, guess button. And in this case, the tk button text is going to be, say, guess. And the, again, we'll use the grid manager. So I say guess, guess button dot, say, grid, row is equal to 100, column is equal to, say, 0, and column span is going to be equal to 5. Now let's just run this. This is really, really interesting. So when I stop this code and I run it, of course, my word has been chosen, but notice that these two widgets appear as though they are right on top. But that's just because the row 99 is the smallest row available in this. In fact, we saw this previously that row number does not need to start from 0, does not have to be always 0, 1, 2, 3, though that's what we use in the calculator game. Um, the way the grid manager works is that whatever is the lowest row, it puts it on top. Whatever is the next after this, it puts it below. Now, of course, we can also make it, let's say 999 and say 1000, which is giving room for, let's say 998 rows in between, but that's probably an overkill. However, we will see them exactly as earlier, because remember, there's nothing lower than this. But we will keep it at 99 and 100 because that's reasonable. We don't expect so many guesses to be made. But this is quite interesting. See how the grid manager is actually working. Over here, we are using a new widget called the entry box. Now, entry box usage and the look and feel of it is quite intuitive because we see this in, for example, web forms and so on and so forth. The idea is that we can enter something here, and what we want to do in our game is that when I click the guess button, for example, this the text should be taken out for further analysis, and that's what I'm going to do. Remember, for the button, I must tell a command. So I'm going to just tell my TK, the button here. I'm going to say command is equal to, let's say command is say equal to get word without any brackets. But right now it's giving an error because I need to go and let's say, define get word, right? So I just say let's say get word. Now I must define this function here. For now, I'll just say, okay, let me just pick out this word. So I say, for example, guessed word is equal to entry box dot get. Now really this must feel quite familiar because previously when we built the calculator, we read out the value of those labels by using cget. Now this get is really quite similar. So all I'm doing is that, okay, whatever is on that box, please pick it up and put it in this string called guessWord. Now just to convince ourselves, we can print, let's say guessed, word is, and I can put this say guessed word, just so that we can see it on the uh, on the terminal. Now when I run this code, notice I get the so word chosen as dowry. I let's say try a word called, let's say, first, and I click on guess. Notice it says guessed word is first, and this is because when I click guess, this function called get word got implemented. Get word basically is telling, look at that entry box and pull out whatever is in there and put it in this string called guess word. Now obviously what this means is that if I were to do, let's say, something like this, my guessed word will have all these spaces, which is obviously a problem. We'll see how to handle this later. Or even if I put some random things which is not even a word, that is also going to be taken as guessed word. But that idea is very simple because whatever is being put in there, in the text box, I click guess, this button guess, this function runs, and hence my guessed word gets updated. I hope you found this interesting. The important bit here is the placement using the grid method. Look at how we have used the column span, the grid span, and we have placed them in row numbers which are very large, because later on when we put the labels, we'll put the labels in lower row numbers, and that will ensure that the labels form above these two widgets. We'll see this as we go along. I hope you found this interesting. In general, this way of learning where we build activities, we see the effect of our code right in front of our eyes as we build these activities. If you think this is interesting, look at our website because we have many such activities. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye bye.